Hello everyone! Welcome to the 5th episode of the Outclaws Podcast. A huge thanks to the Reddit Wings of Fire Discord server for collaborating with us. So please do also consider checking them out. Their link is in the description. Before we get into the episode, I'd like to give a welcome to our new staff members, JayvenDergon, Ministy, and Winishi. And now, I'll hand it over to the host, TheTopBug.
Hello everyone, welcome to the 5th episode of the Wings of Fire podcast titled The Outclaws. It's a series where I invite a couple of guests to appear on the show to talk about a different book in the Wings of Fire series, created by Tui T. Sullivan and published by Scholastic. Today's a special episode as this marks the conclusion of the first arc of the series. I'm your show host, TheTopBug, and here are the guests for today.
Well, I'm Chamomile. I'm a Leafwing Icewing hybrid, and I kind of started the series, I founded it back about last July, so I'm kind of relatively new probably compared to everyone else here, but yeah, I've just been in love with the series, and I'm actually quite happy to be able to be a part of this.
Hi, I'm Owibyx, or just Owi. I'm an artist, main genre Wings of Fire. I'm mostly known for doing animatics on YouTube, but for a while I have not had any motivation. I'm a French Canadian, so if you don't understand, that's why. I discovered Wings of Fire when I was in 6th grade. Well, 5th grade, and waited for the French version to come out. And since then, it's been my favorite series ever since.
Hello, my name is Skyla. I'm a wiki admin on Wings of Fire on fandom, and I'm both a content moderator and a ref maker on there. And I first discovered Wings of Fire in around 2016. And, I first read it in Italian, but when I found out that the rest of the series had already been translated in English, I quickly caught up with that, and I've been reading it ever since.
Well, g'day mates and everybody. I'm William, I'm an Australian. I am the RP moderator for the official Reddit of Wings of Fire. I found the series about 3 years ago now, pretty well spot on. And yeah, I've loved it. It's been great.
I think it's pretty impressive how we got people from across the world to be on this. I think that's really great to get different perspectives, not in both nationality, but in terms of how we got into the series, which is the next question I would like to ask. What does the series mean to you all? I'll start. Well, I first came into the series when I volunteered at a local library a couple of years ago. I want to say it was, what year did Darkness of Dragons come out? 2017? Yeah. I was volunteering at my local library. I actually found the Darkstalker copy out just on the hallway, and I decided to pick it up, and I thought, dang, this is pretty good. I ended up binging the series relatively quick, and now here I am with the podcast, The Outclaws, and I wanted to talk more about it and bring more people to talk about it as well.
Yeah, I think my experience is very different then, because I didn't actually find it. I never found it in a library. I was shopping with my old man, and I came across a 5-pack for the first set of books, and I was like, oh, it's my birthday soon, can I get this? And he's like, yeah, right, whatever. And yeah, that's pretty well the end of the story. Got it, started reading them, loved them, got the next set of books.
Yeah, I think it's decent. I only started a podcast and own all the books, so yeah, I'd say it's pretty alright.
I also found about this series from a bookstore. I found the first book just kind of lying there, and as also I really love making dragon art. I love the cover. So they say don't judge a book by its cover, but if I hadn't seen clay on that one, I probably wouldn't have picked it up. And I read the first book, and luckily for me, that summer I managed to find the rest of them in English. And after that, I found the wiki and the community, and it's been a lot of like finding people who had the same interests, and it means a lot to connect to people who love the same thing as you, in my opinion.
Well said.
As for me, it was in 5th grade, and I think it was like 2016 or 2015. And since I'm French Canadian, we went to the bookstore like at the next town. I was there with my sister, and like my sister kind of gets me like, "Hey, check out this book." As from what I remember. And I'm like, I'm not gonna want to read it. But the thing is, it was only in English. And the funny thing is, I think it was actually Winter Turning, who actually just around came out. I think it was in winter, like winter.
I'm trying to figure out what date Winter Turning came out. I want to say it was 2015.
Yeah, that's around there, like December, like something around there. And the funny thing is, like, he's actually now one of my favorite characters. Because I drew him so much for animatics and all that. But after that, I had to wait for a few months for the first 2 books to be translated in French. And I read in French until Winter's book. I have it in French, but after that, I didn't want to wait for Perrault's book, so I got it in English. And after that, I started reading in English from the end of the 2010s, yeah.
I'm definitely curious to how the French and English books are different in terms of like localization.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the Italian ones are really different. Some things are completely omitted.
Oh, really? Oh, that's something
Yeah.
to bring up later.
And also, yeah, Winter Turning was 2015.
It was 2000. Okay, good. I remember that.
Escaping Peril was the same year, so it's kind of crazy how 2 books were released the same year, in my opinion.
That was like the average time span. I think it was like
one at the beginning, one at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So yeah, now we're waiting like what, 2 years?
Right. Emma, do you want to bring up what the series means to you?
Yeah. So I'm one of the older readers in the community. When this series came out, I was in my early 20s. So I, of course, didn't know much about it as far as existing. I was a part of an art community since the early 2000s. And just recently, I think within the last few years, I started to see more and more of the characters showing up. I think more of the more original character art, and keep seeing these tags for Wings of Fire. And for the longest time, I thought it was just some kind of like webcomic series because of how colorful and bright everything seemed to be, including a lot of the original characters. And I think I accidentally found the first book in a used bookstore, and it just kind of snapped. And I looked more into it and discovered this is actually a series I've probably been looking for my whole life, because I'm an avid reader of dragon novels and dragon art, and finding something where it's specifically the point of view of a dragon and not just a thing being a part of a human world was probably what sold me on it. Like I could not believe this thing had been hidden from me for this long, and so I almost feel like I've been cheated my whole 10 years out of finding something I've honestly been wishing would exist. So that's where it's been for me. And once I found it and got the first 5 books, I said, all right, well, let's just see what happens, because I've tried to read Redwall and a few other anthropomorphic books, and they just never clicked, but this just captured my heart and soul. So I've been deeply a part of it ever since. And you just can't get enough of it.
Better late than never, right? I think it's more impressive that Wings of Fire has been able to attract such a huge fan base.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's definitely one of the most impressive parts about it, is how it managed to grab the attention of a lot of different demographics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really big.
Yep, I will. Okay, before we head in, I will say right now that this series will contain spoilers for Wings of Fire, but we will keep it to its respective books, so we won't spoil any future content. And here's The Brightest Night, which came out on March 25th, 2014. At the time of this recording, it's actually been nearly a week since its 9th anniversary. And the more I think about it, the more I think, dang, I'm getting old. Yeah. Okay, here we go. You guys ready?
All right.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. I actually have no idea where to start.
The prologue's a good point.
The prologue is a good point, but I'd gotten a couple of feedback last time saying that the recap part was a little bit too long, so I'm just let's just jump right into discussion. I thought, let's start out with, because the prologue began with, what was it? I think it was, the night that Oasis was killed 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's where it started. And I think each of the sisters maintained their original personalities from childhood. And I think Blister might have some sort of sociopathic disorder when I reread it. Because they did say she had, a killer's look in her eye the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think that's also, part of the, culture that they've been set. Is you always want to, if you want to be queen, you always have to look for the opportunity.
I think it was said that Queen Oasis intentionally only had a few eggs just to prevent many challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and she killed her sister as well to avoid her challenging for the throne.
Oasis had a sister.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
I believe. Did she? I don't remember. I know. Let's see. I gotta think. His sister and hurt my brain. I don't even. That's all right. Another interesting detail I picked up while reading is that it actually teased Smolder's Winglet deserter in the beginning, where it was talking about him running off with his girlfriend at the time.
Oh, yeah.
Thought that was another interesting detail. And also, fun part, I remember at the end of the prologue, the famous last words of Queen Oasis was, "What's the worst that can happen?" Even mine, this is the worst. I could imagine a Morgan Freeman voice just "Indeed, the worst did happen."
And indeed, the worst did happen. That
Exactly.
night.
Exactly. Exactly.
Saying what's the worst that can happen is effectively putting up a big red flag that says, I'm going to die in the next scene.
But I think the major death flag for a lot of characters in fiction is them talking about the future. If they start talking about their future plans, they're death fodder.
The trope.
Yeah.
I think
That's why.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was saying, I think that's actually one thing I kind of noticed that's fallen off a little bit going through the series was that in the first arc, like you mentioned with Smolder, kind of how it's something that was something premeditated that kind of carried into one of the later the winglets, was that arc 1 had this thing that I enjoyed where you would absorb these details from the first book, then you'd go into the second book, and something that seemed relatively unrelatable would somehow be a huge part of it, like with Tsunami's situation. I just love how a lot of the things in the first arc kind of weave their way into other stories within the same arc and just call back to it, thinking, it doesn't seem like it's a big deal now, but then later on it could lead into something much bigger. So that's actually one thing I kind of loved about the first arc was that.
That's another point I wanted to bring up. I wanted to talk about how the themes and all the relative plot points of the arc was wrapped up almost perfectly in this book. Because I think if there's one thing that's overlooked by the first arc is that it was very airtight when it comes to plot threads being tied up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was. I mean, if you think about it, right, the first book we had Errol and Scarlet and all that, and they got wrapped up as well in the last book. Mm-hmm. So they'd been effectively missing for the entire series up to this point.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Well, prologue done. We speedrun that.
Yeah, for me, sorry, can I?
Go ahead. No, I want all our thoughts to come together.
Yeah, no, for me, it's really interesting that they only showed this happening on the last book when it's the thing that starts the war. Because chronologically, maybe it would have made more sense to show it earlier, but because the Sandwing treasury and everything is so important to this specific book. I think it makes perfect sense that they show it before the beginning of Sunny's book.
Of course.
And
There are, like-
they also show all of the sorry.
No, go ahead.
It also shows like all the Sinnoh princesses like as they're younger, and actually before the end of the book, you know, they'll come together. It's like you see their interactions a bit in the prologue, and yeah,
Of course. There are a lot of good plot that's set up for later, and also there are like a couple ones that set up for arc 2 and even arc 3, which we'll get more on that later. But I think part 1 was of the shifting sands was definitely where things really started to pick up, because not even 30 seconds after, like, we're immediately introduced to the Nightwing Island erupting, and then the whole portal. Was the portal destroyed? I think the portal.
It was not.
It was not destroyed. Okay, well, there was like a huge eruption falling back on them, so...
Yeah, no, I don't believe it was destroyed, because I think that's revisited in book 7.
Really?
It's not destroyed. It's actually revisited back in book 5. Sunny goes to talk about it later, and how it still smells of burning dragon.
Oh, right. I need to remember. It's been a while since I read arc 2. I think, I gotta pull my notes here. I had stuff written down. I think this is where, like, Sunny really starts to shine as a character, because, like, there were traces of her, like, feeling inferior in the previous books, because in a lot of the other books she got talked over a lot. Like, a lot of her ideas had to have been said by Clay or someone else, because no one would take her seriously. And out of all the Dragonists, she believed in the prophecy the most. That was, like, the first thing that she talked about after the Nightwing Kingdom got erupted. It's just like she had to do it because essentially no one else will.
That's like one of the things. It's like one of the things that is mostly talk. Like she talks to herself about that, and she's like, "They won't believe me. They won't believe me," because she knows her friends.
I think that was another thing. Like, the more you start to see from her perspective, the more, like, I think the other Dragonists were definitely put in, like, a bad light through her perspective, because she was the one getting talked over the most. I think it was in chapter 2 where I noticed, like, Tsunami pretty much just said, "Oh, you know her, she's always happy about everything. By tomorrow she'll be smiling again, and by next week she'll probably won't even remember the prophecy." And I was like, damn, what a way to hurt her ego like that.
Yeah. And Clay was like, "Oh, she was kind of excited about the prophecy," and it was just her whole 7 years before that, just kind of excited about it. It's very demeaning towards her. I feel like how the others treat her.
What do you really think about it? Sunny managed to stop the prophecy out of pure spite.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not even kidding. That was like her main catharsis throughout the entire book. Was essentially to prove the people who had doubted the prophecy wrong by managing to take the reins and go full about it. And I wanted to talk about more about how, like, she pretty much single-handedly stopped the war. But another thing I wanted to talk about was, like, the scenes with, like, the 3 Nightwings. It was Prey Hunter, Strong Wings, and Fierce Teeth, and how terrible they are at their jobs.
Yeah,
they're not.
So they kidnap Sunny and immediately lose her, as well as the Obsidian Mirror, within this span of like an hour. They also have terrible stamina, which I noticed too, because when you think about it, you couldn't really exercise much of that Night Kingdom with all the smoke in the air.
they have like I think they most likely have like problem breathing because of all the smoke.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
Malnutrition.
It's definitely hinted at that she notices how emaciated and just unhealthy they are. I mean, they have the equivalent body of someone that's probably been starving for a long time. They're bacterially infested in their saliva, which apparently isn't a normal thing, that they just kind of adapted based on their living condition. And then on top of it, they've got like smoker lung pretty much, just due to how they've been bringing up their whole life.
I think they became so sick that they invented a new disease.
Pretty much.
That was exactly what happened.
It's kind of a mentality thing of like they don't even set someone to like guard them when they sleep because they just think, oh yeah, no one's gonna attack us because we're Nightwings. So it's not even that they're just like physically unhealthy. It's also that like they don't really expect anyone to like go against them.
Yeah, they've really been put themselves on a pedestal. Like, you know, they're oh, we've got all these like powers we don't actually have, and then no one will attack us because we're super powerful and we came up with the prophecy. And then like, you know, we see later they get attacked because they came up with the prophecy.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, put themselves on the pedestal. Sure, if the pedestal's a couple kilometers high.
Yeah, and I was gonna say also the Nightwings are really kind of mean towards Sunny for no real like reason, especially Fierce Teeth, despite, you know, the fact that they literally stole her because she was like Starflight's apparent crush.
Yeah. And then they lost her within 5 minutes. So what does that say about them more than Sunny? But I thought it was the kidnapping. Of course. I thought the newest piece of Animus Treasure, the Obsidian Meteor, was pretty cool. I liked how that was used. And the thing that I thought it was like, because this is before the graphic novel came out, is that I initially imagined it as like the mirror from Snow White with like the talking head, but minus the head. He would just show like pictures, but no, the Obsidian Mirror confirmed to be like animate smoke coming out.
Yeah. I have my griffin level in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like multiple colors.
Where's the rainbow?
Pretty much. I just kind of thought of it as like just completely black hand mirror.
It was like a black hand mirror, but I didn't imagine the smoke part of it. I thought it would just like relay images like through their POV.
Mm-hmm. At that point, it makes me wonder, why did they call it a mirror if it's just smoke that's going to come out of it and not something that's reflected on the surface? But alas.
I've tried to think of the name of that one party machine where like the smoke comes out of it. What was it called? If it's like, you know, like when you go to parties and you see like the smoke show.
Oh, the fog machine.
The fog machine. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was an over glorified fog machine with prophecy.
I think they should rename it to
I
that.
want to see more Animus objects for everyday items.
Mm-hmm.
If nothing more gets me more excited than seeing the extraordinary being used for the ordinary.
And the thing is, I also the obsidian mirror light is it obsidian? Yeah.
It is.
Like Sunny tries it and it's like pulling her heart, like in graphic novel. It's a horrible feeling when she smokes on it. It's like, I don't know, maybe it's like representing something in real life. I don't know, like smoking and all that. I just thought of it like that.
Yeah, that's something I picked up, was that Sunny seems to have a really innate, she has like a sense for the Animus objects. Like every time you're around one, they mention how it has this weird, like shaking or like evil pull at her from it. And I've always wondered if that's some kind of sensitivity she has based on, well, we'll talk about it later, obviously, but based on her lineage of where she comes from. Like she might have like a sensitivity to it.
I think that could be a possibility, like a small trace of the Animus gene allowed her to sense it better than others.
Mm-hmm. That's how I always perceived it, because I know it's never been fully explained if she did inherit it or not and just doesn't know how to tap into it, or she could be something similar to like what Fate Speaker is, which I've heard different people talk about it, but like it's not really a full-on power, but it's a sensitivity to it based on her lineage and where she comes from.
Well, to answer that question fully, that would require me to spoil the lineage that would appear later.
Yeah.
And people in the audience, you probably know what I'm talking about.
It kind of always felt like an ornate like metaphor to me. Like, oh, you're looking into someone else's life, so that feels like you're pulling at your heart. It's almost like it's not really something physical. It's more like you don't want to do it, and therefore you feel bad because of it.
A deal with the devil, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a recurring thing we kind of see with Sunny too, is that we kind of notice how she has this feeling of always wanting to find the good in things, even if they're bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she tends to like, she's see the brighter side of things.
Mm-hmm.
She wants to be mad, but she can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes her a bit to really kind of go against that. Like you see with Scarlet, she's going against it. Mm-hmm. But everybody else, even the queens. She tries to see the good in them.
She's optimistic. She's not dumb, though. She knows that like optimism could go so far, and there are people that genuinely irritate her, such as Blaze.
Yeah, and I think that's really the strength of her character in this book, is that, you know, we've seen her throughout the whole the rest of the series as a pretty well as something, you know, all of her thoughts are always pretty negative, however she's outwardly positive.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think well fully reaches the eyes. And next up, we go into the Scorpion Den, which is probably one of my favorite set pieces in the Wings of Fire world. This was pretty fun. And then this is where we meet the Outclaws. No, not us. The in-book Outclaws.
no, us. Yeah, us. We're in.
You know what? Yes,
Yeah, having the podcast in the background.
honestly.
They draw ourselves in the panels of the.
Do you think if I beg like the producers of the Wings of Fire show hard enough, they'll include us as like cameos in the background? I would.
It should.
I think
Just
if I begged hard enough, if you're from the Wings of Fire TV show production team, sponsor, whatever, please, I would love to cameo in it if possible. Just hit me up at TheTopBug@gmail.com. That's my email, by the way, so go reach that if you want to contact me.
Talk about. I'm sorry.
No, okay. It's okay.
When I first read it, I remember I didn't know how to imagine the Scorpion Den. To be honest, I just imagined like a cave with like not a cave, a Scorpion Den.
I don't think it's
No, it's not a cave. But I think it's also like a mix of when I was role playing back in the days with Don and a French forum, like it was a cave and all that with scorpions. Maybe it affected my reading and all that. But I really had difficulty.
I don't remember what I imagined the Scorpion Den to be the first time, but I remember it was not a cave, but I just imagined like a little area in like the desert.
My mind went straight to Agrabah.
Agrabah.
From Aladdin. Like just straight to Agrabah.
Yeah, I think I had a mix of Agrabah and then like kind of like the canyons near Petra.
Mm-hmm.
In the real world, how it's got like, you know, there's really high canyons and then there's like cities all in between it and everything.
Right.
I think
fair,
one of my. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think this was one of the first times we really see more of like a settlement-based thing. Like normally, I think one of the things we noticed was that a lot of the places that we've been to are more like naturally built into their environment. And this is the first time we see things that describes like tents, buildings, intricate pieces like jewelry and all that. And it amazes me how did they do this? Like these big hulking creatures, how do they somehow have the intricacies and know how to create these almost human-like settlements that we know. And it blew me away whenever I started looking into it more.
Well, it's already been established that the dragons already have their own access to tools and technology that they use.
I think it's interesting because, like, what you were saying about the thing, it's underground. Because if I had read the Italian book first, I would have probably thought the same because they use a word that means, like, an underground sort of settlement, like, for den. So I would have had the same sort of feeling. However, I kind of didn't imagine as well that it would be so, like, all the architecture and the arches and the buildings. I kind of always imagined there's, like, kind of, you know, some tents, some stalls for, like, the market, and that's basically it. But it's a lot more intricate. And also, we don't really see many settlements in the series. We mostly see palaces. So it's quite interesting to see this as well.
Actually, you're right. I think, well, there was a Moon Kingdom, but we only got that for 30 pages. But this is like the first time we've actually gotten to a more in-depth look at like actual dragon settlements.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it is just filled with outlaws, and yeah, it's still a settlement, so I'd say that counts. We also
The name as well. Scorpion's Den.
I'd imagine, I'd imagine like localization had to be pretty difficult sometimes. Oh yeah, I almost forgot to mention we left out some pretty good characters here. This was Six Claws, and I think Thorn is next.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised because I think Six Claws gets more fleshed out in Deserter because he's got like a little bit of a role to play in this one. Thorn, though, I think Thorn was pretty based in terms of like introducing her because she kills Prey Hunter 5 minutes after her introduction.
I feel like that was the thing that really made me not like Thorn. Like, still, I have a bit of a kind of just, she just kills a dragon because he says something that she didn't like, basically.
Yeah, it's gonna have resentment for Nightwings.
Pardon? Sorry? I didn't hear what Owie said.
It's like, you know, because of like Morosir and Stonever, she has resentment for Nightwings.
Yeah, she was pretty bent on that revenge for Morosir.
Yeah.
For sure.
I wanted to kill him by my own talents.
Yeah, I just took note of that though, because I when I first read it, that was kind of something that I always felt uncomfortable about. But I actually found a small detail in it was that when she had him pinned down, it was more of a threat to get information out of him. And then whenever I think she spat fire out and caught some of the carpet on fire, and that caused him to kind of freak out and actually scratch at her. And I think that's what caused her to go into him. So because of him injuring her, she did him in.
Yeah, talk about an introduction, right? And I think, I think it was like a few chapters ago. It was like Sunny had to comfort Prey Hunter in his dreams by just like letting her scales rub off on him.
Oh yeah,
and then he got killed, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that was something I was wondering if they were going to talk about. Was just that's also kind of a reflection on how Sunny is as a dragon, or I was about to say as a person, but she just has this like constant empathy, even for, like she mentions, for her own kidnappers. Why do I have feelings for these kidnappers? Like I shouldn't think of them in any way other than being bad. And that she tries to deal with herself, like after he dies, you know, like I shouldn't feel bad that Thorn killed him. The world's better off without him. But she tells herself this, but she empathetically doesn't feel that way. Like she doesn't like seeing others killed for no reason, or, you know, without justification.
Well, an act of hate can be good another, but an act of kindness can be just as contagious.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And also, like, I mean, this world is pretty much a kill first, ask questions later for mentality for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Ford even says it afterwards, like, you need to show your claws to get, like, dragons to listen to you. And, you know.
I think that's why I found the Scorpion End so interesting, is that it was really a difference from the world we had seen, where, you know, dragons were giving out free food and all that. And of course, they were skeptical, but that's the way that Thorn had made it. That's what made me like Thorn immediately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was tough, but at the same time, she didn't want the innocents to suffer either. And like you see that with the dragonette that they find while going with Six Claws to her tent, was they find that starving baby, and even he takes that on the mother. Like, why aren't you feeding them? You know the rules. Like, dragonettes don't starve until after the age, or aren't allowed to starve until after the age of 8. So she actually cares a lot for her settlement, and I guess you could say her people, or dragons, but yeah, she still has to show her power.
Yeah, and they also control the oasis.
Yeah, she has to stay in control.
Force. Oh yeah, then I think she had wanted posters. Who was it? The 3 was Dune, Morosir, and Stone Mover.
Yeah,
but she's been looking for them for years. And also Sunny, who's her daughter.
You're not here for the reward?
Yeah, I mean, when Thor reunited with Sunny, that's probably one of my favorite moments in the first arc, to be honest. Because it was such a touching moment, because we have actual decent parents for once in Wings of Fire.
Yeah, I was trying to think back to all of them, and I'm trying to think. I think she is the first or the only real decent parent.
I mean, sure, she killed a dragon like 10 minutes ago, but when you compare the others, one who sold him off for a pack of cows, the other who ripped out teeth, there was we don't even know where Glory's parents are at, and then Mastermind is, well, he tortured Rainwing. So Thorn's already a step up from all the others.
For science.
Oh, you know, you have to understand. No. You see the Venom experience, it was just a goof. Why aren't you laughing?
It was just a prank, bro.
There are cameras. We kidnapped your friends for a year. There are cameras. Watch.
For our YouTube video.
I would rather not see like prank videos enter the Wings of Fire universe, because that would be a nightmare.
Oh God.
Watch me freeze my friend's leg. Haha, funny.
Watch me set this orphanage on fire, which is exactly what Atticus did.
Yeah.
I'm not even kidding. That's what happens. The orphanage was set on fire, so he can capture Sunny to go back to Burn's stronghold, which is actually where the first part ends, I believe.
I find it really interesting that Sunny recognizes him because he was one of the guards at Scarlet's like party, but like initially she doesn't recognize him because he didn't have the same scar that he had on his like face, and it's kind of implied that he got that after he defected, or like because of that he defected from Burn's army, which I think is really interesting.
I'd like to think that Burn probably punished him in some way for letting the Darians escape.
Mm-hmm.
Especially seeing him, you know, because we've seen him earlier, it really shows that the world is moving without them. It really shows that, because he's had something punished him because of what they did, and then it kind of, you know, and his kids and being held under threat, and then Sunny having, you know, desperately basically.
I mean, he was willing to kill Six Claus's daughter, Ostrich, if she didn't comply.
And then Sunny storms in and like, I will go with you.
Right. And then I thought this is probably one of my Wings of Fires for Kid moments. Burn's stronghold, and how we're introduced to decapitated ragged hands sitting on the wall.
Bleeding heads.
Oh yeah, and I think the blood is actually dry from.
Yeah, there's dripping blood on the walls, and it smells of rotting meat. So
I think it's a perfect vacation spot, honestly.
Okay.
Can you imagine like trying to sell that house? Like I'd imagine like a real estate's got to be a real tough job in this universe.
Yeah, slap surfing stronghold.
Welcome to the stronghold. Don't mind the dragon head sitting on top of the floor.
Probably advertised with only photos from the inside and just omitting everything from the outside.
Well, the inside is not that much better. Have you even seen her Weirdling collection?
Yeah, to be fair. I was more talking about like the halls, maybe. Those are described to be quite pretty.
I think the only normal thing inside there is the statues of Sandwich soldiers.
Mm-hmm. The treasury, I think, is also quite nice.
The treasury is also another normal thing.
Mm-hmm.
I thought there was actually something like with the Weirdling collection. They actually teased a little bit of R3, like very briefly here, because they found like a Silkwing hybrid in one of the corridors. This is in chapter 9. I have to find. I don't remember the exact page, but they were talking about how it had like, they had like buds instead of where wings used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, oh my god, that's even worse now that I think about it, because that implies that whoever that dragon was died before they reached adulthood.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a question of how they got there to begin with, because they couldn't fly.
And I think it was actually a Silkwing.
I think it was, because it had like wing buds. Let me find the page. I need to find it. I have my book right next to me.
I know, like, in the graphic novel, we don't see any wings. Like, is it like they show the wings or not?
They don't show them, I think. They definitely show the Icewing Sandwing hybrid. I'm quite sure.
Yeah, they show that. They show that.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it. I'm very positive that it was a Silkwing. I need to find it.
I think it's not like the whole. I think it's just the wings that they show, actually.
Wings. Okay, great.
I was gonna say, I have like weird fever dream that it was like a Silkwing's wings or a wing of them.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
my
Sunny's
source.
like, oh, I'd never seen these wings before, or something like that.
Okay, for the time being, my source is that I made it up. Because I can't find the page, and we're gonna be here for a long time if I try to go page by page to find it.
I feel like going back to chapter 9, it has one of like my favorite Sunny quotes. Like, there's more to his story. There's always more to everyone's story if you bother to find out what it is. And I think that's kind of Sunny in a quote, honestly.
Because she doesn't feel the need to essentially like backstab or betray anyone, because she really rather take the most pacifistic route possible. It was just okay. Thank you, Dairy Godmother. I need to find this. Similar. Okay, you know what? That works. Okay. I almost forgot to mention we get reintroduced to scavengers in this book. Remember those?
Oh yeah.
They kind of
We do.
That was kind of like a trend for the first arc. They'd save one scavenger per book.
Yeah.
Except for, I don't think Starflight had to. I think that was omitted in his. Oh yeah, there was like more things that exhibit. They actually talked about like a mudwing with no claws or teeth, and that was like an animus cursed. And I think that was like one of the major like factors that influenced later arcs is how animus can extend to living beings.
For her. Yeah, that's when Sunny starts wondering if like she was animus touched as an egg, and like that's why she looks like that. And it's kind of just links. She figures out like little pieces about it like throughout the book that is like
Okay. Well, she did speculate that Stone Mover probably did something to her egg, and I think yes, but not in the way you're expecting. Okay, moving on.
And then is Smolder introduced? I think in around this area.
And yeah, I forgot to mention Smolder. Thank you. Okay. Okay, hold on, V. Thank you. Half a wing that was speckled purple and gray, unlike any dragon she's ever seen. Page 104. Okay, I need to find this because I'm still on about the Silkwing thing because I'm pretty certain this is gonna be the episode where I slowly go insane over details, right?
Yeah. I mean, the Weirdling Tower itself was, again, another point of Wings of Fire is not for kids, because it was quite literally a tower of body parts and stuffed dragons and horribleness, basically.
Oh yeah,
Burn is into taxidermy. That's pretty much confirmed.
I mean, just even going back to the prologue where it even mentions that Byrne had a psychotic tendency to mutilate animals from a very young age was just, that's unsettling for no matter how old you are.
You also have to take into effect that it's very difficult to cut off any body part from a dragon because their bones are so strong in the scales. And Howie, take the stage.
Yeah, on the French book, it's actually like the white dragon has like, undeveloped wings. Like in the French version, it says undeveloped wings. It gave him like a weird, like some sort of reptile shape and all that. Yeah, it actually like has undeveloped wings. So you're right on that.
Same. I should have caught on to that. Why did I miss that? Yeah, I think that Smolder was actually a very generous. What's the word for holding prisoners? A ward, right? Is that the right word? Warden, yes.
Yeah.
Because he had to. I mean, he was definitely more graceful with Sunny than he was with Scarlet, which is kind of being all vengeful in the corner, ripped open a dragon's head, but that was already dead. So yeah. And I thought that he brought up like a really good point of asking the questions of how the scavengers were able to take all that treasure, because he mentioned there was 4 rooms worth, and you gotta remember that dragons are on average like I think over 5 times larger than humans. So how did they manage to do it? So I thought that was a really good point that I wanted to talk about more because I was trying to think.
I think it was explained in the prologue how naturally took only a few things that were small enough, small thing, but also took the onyx thing. We'll think about that later.
The last point, the Eye of Onyx for the notable taken.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's Blister that she tells this, so it's like it's even more kind of like pointed towards spoilers, but
yeah,
right. I mean, I think it was a bit of an inside job.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say, I found a little interesting detail that made me think after reading through the series so far, because you know how they kind of talk about it's, and I don't know how to go into it because it's kind of an arc to mention, but how they describe the size of their fruit and food to the size of the scavengers in their world. They're kind of more dragon sized, so like a blueberry's pretty darn big to a scavenger. And there's a scene where he supposedly just tosses Flower a banana. And I'm trying to think about how big the blueberry is compared to a banana in terms of...
that crush Flower.
Going back. Unless he's got some very scavenger-sized food, I don't think tossing her a banana was a good idea.
I'd imagine that'd be a terrible way to go out, being crushed by a banana.
Like, I know they're
By
probably...
banana.
I know it's probably just to be a passive thing, but now that I think about it, how they kind of go into detail later on in the series about the size of the food for dragons to humans, it now just kind of was. I just skimmed it, and I was like, wait a minute.
I like to think that is the funny oversight on Tui's part, is tossing a big banana to flour.
I think she kind of forgot that size detail in that scene, but now it's now just something funny I keep in the recess of my brain that will never get explained.
If there are any Wings of Fire artists listening to this episode, I want to see artwork of flour being crushed by a giant banana that was
I don't know artist.
smolder. I don't know. I will give $85 minimum. I said minimum, okay?
Oh god.
It depends. Like, I'm not gonna pay like $5 just for like a high quality artwork of flour getting crushed by a banana. I would pay more than $5.
Hey, I'll help chip in. If you got a PayPal, I'll help chip in with it.
Okay, great.
Pretty awesome.
Oh yeah, talk about animal size. Like, I'd imagine they have to be pretty big.
Oh yeah, like the graphic novel. There's a scene with this mouse. Okay, the graphic novel in front of me. It's like when Cindy wakes up, I think, in the stronghold or something, and or it's before they eat. Like they eat, and the mouse is like the size of one of the fingers. Like not all of the finger, but like a bit of the finger. It's like the size of a pay for a human or something.
I imagine they have to be pretty considerably big.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you think about it, right, Sunny lives on like one lizard, and I think she's, I think that the humans can stand on her shoulder.
Yeah.
Oh, right. I don't think it's been confirmed, like, the size differences between dragons and scavengers. I don't think that was necessarily confirmed. I may be wrong on this, but I think that the sizes just keep changing. I know that Sunny's considerably small compared to the average dragon, but that's about it.
Mm-hmm. And like there's actually the like official art with flower, and so she's like with the smolder, and she's like at the size of the elbow. It's like weird, like compared to a graphic novel, it's like smaller or something. I don't know.
I don't remember the official. I don't think we've been getting any official size charts.
Yeah, we just have that drawing.
Yeah, there's not. We've had the only thing I think we had that's kind of close to being canon is the fact that that they can stand on dragon shoulders really comfortably. Because it does it a couple of times in the book. Flower does it, and then the other scavengers that we see in the ruins later in the book, they stand on Sunny's shoulder, or they get on Sunny's back or something.
Oh, I think that's correct. Okay, before we get too off track, the Outclaws actually managed to invade the stronghold, so I thought that was pretty cool. Because they actually got like a just decent amount of people there, but I think they were outnumbered 4-1.
Yeah.
Like they were very heavily getting beaten until I think Peril showed up. So they were definitely trained, but it really kind of shows how large the Sandwing kind of population is compared to the ones that fled and the ones that followed Thorn.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Peril made an appearance because she's been gone for a decent amount of time, and I imagine she had been dream visited by Scarlet pretty recently.
Okay.
I don't remember what was she doing after the first book. I think she was trying to find Scarlet. I think I don't fully remember because like in universe, like a month has passed since the beginning of Arc 1 to now, if I'm correct. It's been like 2 or 3 weeks.
From what I remember, she got kicked out of the Skyward Kingdom by the new queen.
Queen Ruby, yes.
Yeah.
Hold on. Someone actually drew the altar that gets too far getting crushed by a banana. Like a JPEG meme. I'm gonna, and once the video release of this comes out, I'm gonna show that picture on the screen just to show people what I'm talking about. This has been a good altar. Just DM me your PayPal like later. Because I said the $5. Oh god. Okay. Yeah, back to the invasion. I think Peril actually got wind of that Kestrel's dead. Because she was killed after the epilogue of the first book. And that was pretty... I mean, her reaction was devastating enough, but I think what was more devastating was when she had to go free Scarlet, and then she just continued to verbally abuse her again.
Yeah.
Back to...
Can I say something really quickly?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's when they first go to see Scarlet, I think it's interesting how they kind of like tease that there is a box ominously in the background that is just hissing, and before Sunny has any like chance to kind of investigate what it is, she's kind of brought to be chained up by Smolder. And I love how Tui kind of sets up these little details throughout the book, like the scavenger ruins, and now this is kind of like all connected in a way.
Right. I think that's one of my favorite things about the first arc is setup and payoff is definitely one of the highlights of this arc, because I forgot, I think it was V or Kim that mentioned it earlier, how like some things that might seem irrelevant earlier will actually play a huge factor later. And I always love these like little details that you can notice on a reread and even a first read sometimes.
Yeah, it's definitely the best part, the best like kind of set of arc 1 that kind of gets lost later in the arcs. But I mean, yeah, even just teasing the scavengers being a big thing about this book by the way of the settlement that we find, the Burn settlement.
Right. There are a lot of things I like about the first arc, but that definitely takes the cake. We actually do get to learn more about Sunny's family, because Storm mentions, because she was looking for Stone Mover, which actually happens to be Sunny's father. That makes her half Nightwing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, pause. The Dairy Godmother also posted another banana picture.
I bring one really quick.
Oh my god.
I've never seen this much art for
dumb. You know, I'm all for it. I'll take fan art any day of jokes that are made on the show.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I encourage it. I still have yet to see like any Surfer Riptide jokes that were made in episode 2, and I want to see. You know, I should just make a list of fan art I want to see from previous episodes. Maybe people will do that.
I like of all the things that have happened in this book, the one that we choose to make a joke out of is just Flower would be thrown up.
I think that'll be the running gag of this episode, like how the Surfer Riptide jokes were the running gag of episode 2.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was definitely one of my favorites. Hold on, I'm going to pause the discussion for a quick second. Camo, is your mic working? Or are you just busy doing something? Oh, gosh. And, oh yeah, welcome new people that decided to show up. Yeah, you missed out on a little bit. You missed out on, like, a joke of, like, Flower getting crushed by a banana. Because, too, we probably forgot about the size differences between scavengers and fruit in the world.
yeah, pretty much.
I think that's definitely going to be my new favorite for...
We are still accepting fan art, so you know.
I'll try something real quick.
Oh, God.
I think your credit card might stop accepting fan art soon.
My money is gonna be drained by the end of this episode. Anyway, I thought what was interesting is that Thorn actually kept the Moonstone pendant from Stone Mover when he gave it to her like 8 years ago. I didn't think that she still thinks about them even after all this time.
Even despite how much she hates her for ditching him, basically. Because, you know, she never got that last letter from him.
Yeah, because it was intercepted by Burn.
Mm-hmm.
Because I believe she controls like which mail gets sent out and all that. And yeah, he's still alive, so Sunny makes way for her. And Stonemover was a lot more sad than I could have anticipated. When I first read this part of Stonemover, it was a hard moment. And I thought, dang. Because like all he needed was just like a hug, and honestly. Because he said that he turned the animus magic on itself by having his body turn into stone instead of taking parts of his soul. But that also got me thinking, is that when it comes to animus magic, like, is the soul a physical thing that can be measured, or is it more like internal? And but what I mean by that is that I think personally, when it comes to animus magic, I don't think it affects the soul. I think that the more you use it, like, it gives like the user like a sort of god complex. Like, imagine if you do like something bad, like, sure, you'd feel bad about it, but what if you find out you can get away with it with no consequences? Like, wouldn't you try to see how far you can push the boundaries? That's how I see animus magic.
Yeah, it's that whole thing of absolute power corrupts absolutely. Especially, and it's like, you know, we see it later in the books. I'm not going to talk about it, but like, even with Stone Mover, he mentally made his magic to turn back on himself whenever he did it to turn him all to stone. And I feel like that's more of a I'm trying to think of it like an oversight on his part. It's like, you know, he outwardly thinks that his soul is doing it, and so when he did use his magic to make it so, it was just kind of put in as every time I use magic, slowly turn me to stone.
I think so, yeah. Oh yeah, he enchanted a fox to bring him food called dinner. That's the fox's name.
Mm-hmm.
It almost like a fox walks into a bar joke.
It's interesting though, because that's the first like actual like being that is being enchanted by an animus, because obviously it's always been like objects up to here, so it's kind of crossing the line in that way.
It definitely, I think, like, maintaining your humanity when it comes to animus magic is definitely like a huge plot point that will be brought up later in Arc 2.
Okay.
But speaking of animus magic, Sunny actually got dream visited by a scavenger near the end of Part 2. Look, she was able to find out like where the next dream visitor was at, and also the scavenger den that she had to travel to next. So I thought this was like interesting, as scavengers are proven to be able to use animus type objects, because I thought it would only work on dragons that used it.
Yeah, it's definitely a really big kind of thing. And even you know, again, the world building, we just kind of saw that village, and it was just kind of like, this is kind of an interesting thing, but then it becomes really important.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely set up and payoff.
I do think that's like there's a weird like sort of parallel between Stone Mover and Sunny, where it's like they're both being used by the Nightwings, but in different ways, and obviously they both kind of like suffer because of it.
Right. I think a lot of people suffer with like too much power.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would like to quickly talk about the Stone Mover Thorn difference, and how Sunny chooses to be with them. How she chooses to be Thorn rather than Sunny than Stone Mover for the most part.
Right.
Because Stone Mover, when she met him, it's such a difference from what Thorn was. Thorn was all go get her, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to find my daughter, and Stone Mover's just lying in a cave. Oh, woe is me, the world is bad, I'm going to be stoned.
Yep. I think that's definitely a lot to think about. But moving on, Sunny actually makes it to the scavenger den and meets up with two scavengers that she named Fluffy and Holler. And if you read Dragon Slayer, you'd probably know who these two are by now, but I will talk about that for another day, because that's going to be a whole different episode, and I have a lot of things to say about Dragon Slayer. That's Jay. We're going to pause the discussion so Kimo can get back. I'm probably just going to like edit out all the parts that I say we're going to pause the discussion, because I feel like I can make it.
I'm finishing the drawing.
Oh, good, I can sweat.
Oh my god.
Okay, I'm done. I'm done.
Oh,
I'm
God.
done. I'm the best person I've chat.
Okay.
I looked up.
You ready?
I have to see this now.
Okay, 3, 2.
There's
I'm
this.
disappointing.
Oh my god! Yeah.
That's amazing.
Absolutely beautiful.
That's beautiful. I love this. I need to pin that. This is.
It was really fun to draw.
I love this episode so far.
Best.
Oh god, I'm so much. Perfection.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hey, there we go.
All right, there we go. Welcome back, Cameron. All right,
I
back.
can hear you.
How do I set this thing? Change output.
I love this piece of fan art so much. It's. I love how Vanessa is doing like a wrestling move.
Exactly. I was like, that's why I was most silent. I was like drawing. Oh God.
You should definitely make that your profile picture on the 1st of April.
Which one?
That's amazing.
The banana one.
The banana. Back to discussion. Sunny actually makes her way back to the rainforest for the first time since chapter 3, I think it was. So the majority of the book she was alone. And there's one piece of critique that I have about this book, and also the rest of the series as a whole in some ways, because each of the arcs had the tendency to split up the main group in its climax, and I think that kind of hurts it more than it helps it, because I thought the whole theme was to show how they grow together. But I can also understand it gives them time to grow individually too. But I would have liked to see if they actually stuck together more than just over half the book being separated.
Yeah.
That's one thing I would change if I were writing.
I think that was the one thing about book 2 that I absolutely just could not get behind, was that it just felt like everyone was literally shoved in a hole while it was all just tsunami.
Oh yeah, I forgot they were shoved into a hole.
Tsunami.
Yeah.
I think
definitely seeing them more together is definitely a highlight.
Yeah, I think book 5 does it better though, right? Because the whole of the events all together. Sunny kind of got taken, and then Clay and
the reason why I'm not sorry, go ahead.
No, that's all right. I was gonna say, Glory is now queen. Tsunami is effectively training the Rain Wings. Clay is taking care of
Yeah, they're circumstances that set up reasons for why she's by herself versus just, all right, everyone stage left.
That's the main thing, is that the reason why I'm not criticizing about that much is because each of their individual goals and plot lines all contributed to the main goal of stopping the war, which is, so even if they were doing their own separate things, they were all contributing to the same main goal. So that's why it flowed a lot better and didn't feel like just random side stories in a video game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they all come back at in the end of this book, some of the side character, which I really liked.
Of course. All right. And I think Sunny offered a more democratic approach to ending the war by gathering all the Sandwich sisters in one place and putting it up to a vote. So it's literally the I Love Democracy theme from Star Wars. That was the main goal. But they had to each travel to individual places. I know they had to travel to the Talons of Peace to give them the message to Blister. They actually got to go back to the Mud Kingdom for the first time in forever.
Yeah, and we really met to get that.
I think it was more like the outskirts of it.
I
don't think we actually got, because remember they were preparing to pretty much head out for a battle. So I don't think they were actually in the kingdom, if I remember correctly.
Okay, but you said Argo, Mudwings, yes. Oh, they're great. I'm a firm advocate for them.
Absolutely.
I mean, we get to meet a new one. Or the first time in forever.
Queen Moorhead?
Yeah.
Okay, she's
So for just a bit.
based Queen, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
But they had to dream visit almost a good portion of the Mudwings to tell them not to go with the offensive against the Ice Wings, because either way it would have been a suicide or a genocide, as Sunny put it.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought there was also another important scene I wanted to highlight, is how each of the Mudwings were singing the Dragonet song in the same manner that the Skywing prisoners did in book 1.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a really poignant callback, just to show that people still have hope in the world. That was Sunny's main goal, because they wanted to maintain the prophecy, even if not many people believed in it.
And they obviously still do, because just by being dream visited by them, they immediately believe that it's the prophecy dragons coming to talk to them. It's they're supposed to, if they want to end the war, which obviously they do, that's the best way to do so, which I think is, as you said, a really good callback to the first book.
I mean, they're almost held as gods in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
They literally came down from the heavens to bring the message.
They appeared in your dreams. I don't know how much else you can get other than
the boogeyman. Okay.
I do think it's quite realistic that Blaze doesn't listen to them at the beginning.
Sunny, she did not listen to Blaze at all. I think Glacier had to convince her.
Yeah.
They They eventually do manage to meet up in the stronghold together, and that's conveniently where Queen Oasis was buried a long time ago.
Yeah.
And that was like the huge... I would argue that's like the climax of the first arc, because that was the first time they got together in over 18 years. And also they were surrounded by dragons from every tribe. So this is definitely the main climax of the first arc.
Yeah, it really is. Especially, again, more foreshadowing that we had earlier in the book was Queen Oasis's grave, and it happened to all culminate in that big open area where, they tossed down the heads and they were waiting and watching effectively.
Right. And also, Blister had a plan in mind for Burn. She got her 2 Dragonbite Vipers, which are the most deadliest snake in area. And I thought that the description for how the venom enters the body was very graphic. I had it written down somewhere. Yeah, it spreads fast, and the black veins and tendrils will spread throughout the body before the claws will start to curl and shrivel before overtaking the heart. So I thought that was very detailed on how it killed Burn the first time. And Clay actually gets to make a step up in this. He actually saves, I think it was... Who was it? It was Glory... I think it was Fate Speaker, Starflight, and Sunny from getting hit by the Viper. And he got it in his right thigh.
I didn't really like that scene, if I'm honest.
Really? I thought it was cathartic.
It was good, but it felt a little forced.
Not really, because if you go back to the first arc, like, Clay's entire character was struggling to actually step up to be the big wings. And I think there was words from Kestrel to him saying, like, if you're not going to be willing to fight for your friends, you're not going to be to any use to them at all. And that was his entire catharsis from that point onward. And that ties into how he actually grew as a character. Because I don't think he would have taken on the Dragonbite Viper in the same way he did if not for the first arc. That's why I have to disagree with that point.
I do think it's quite graphic the way that they describe later on the poison. Obviously, sorry if you wanted to talk about this, I'll let you go on.
I want to know more about. I want to know how it plays out in the graphic novel because I haven't read that yet.
The poison.
The poison, yeah.
That's actually something I've talked about in the main Discord. Was I brought up about an interesting thing about how was it Burn that got bit? Yeah.
It was Burn that got burned.
Yeah.
Burn essentially feels like she dies within a matter of seconds, yet we have time to see Clay go through what he goes through. And she's obviously much bigger and probably stronger than he is. So I just thought it was funny how fast it seemed to off her, and then we have time to have Clay go through his whole scene.
That does make less amount of sense because Clay's smaller. Yeah, the poison didn't affect fast enough.
It's like,
and in the graphic novel, sorry.
I bet you the poison has to travel faster the smaller the body is, right?
And in the graphic novel, it's shown as vines growing, red, not red, but black vine.
It was veins, yeah.
Red veins, yeah, veins, yeah. Black blood going to her head.
Yeah, it kind of looks like a root network that starts at a source and spreads out.
Okay, you're right. Argyle mentioned that Burn was bit in her chest and Clay was on his thigh, so that makes sense.
Yeah, I was gonna ask what bit.
Burn was bitten her ankle. However, I think Clay was bitten in his back leg.
Okay, but hear me out. Clay didn't skip on leg day. That's why he survived. I'm serious. If it hit it in his thigh and it didn't react that fast enough, then I'm just saying.
I mean, there's a point of maybe sandwings are more vulnerable to this venom than mudwings are, since the vipers are mostly in the desert, and they'd have to evolve to be more able to fend off the sandwings specifically.
They also have bulky bodies, and I think fire scales probably paid into that factor because they're more resilient.
Well, I think what it was is that it goes for the heart immediately. So because Burns was on her ankle, it was right by her heart, whereas his was on his back thigh, his right thigh, so it had more time to travel.
I suppose, right? I assume that all the medical students and whatnot were probably going to complain to me after this episode about how venom works.
Yeah.
But I'm not willing to go into that because Peril actually managed to stop the venom by, using our fire scales to, what's the word I'm looking for? Cauterize the wound.
But she pretty much burns the venom inside of his circulatory system.
Yeah, right. Actually, no, I think I retract that. Yeah, Cam, I don't know if you're upset at me talking about venom in this way because you're in the medical field.
I'm not. I think actually, like I said, I've discussed this in length with people in the Discord, and we've actually had a lot of fun time talking about it.
How venom works. All right, but how Venom 2018 movie.
Yeah, we keep fire scales at the hospital in case of venom injuries.
All right. Okay, that sounds accurate. Thank you. And I think Blister was. Go ahead.
I do think it's quite it's more graphic, the scene in which they describe like how they stop Clay's wound, which like they describe it as like there's like this gaping bleeding wound on his leg that Sunny nearly froze up once she looks at it. And I think that's kind of like nearly more graphic than Burns' whole death scene, like when it comes to like showing how a character reacts to like violence in a way.
Yeah, I will definitely say that scene is actually probably one of the harder hitting scenes in the entire first arc. Is just going from Clay getting bitten to how she has to dig in there to get it dissolved. It was probably one of the hardest ones for me to actually kind of read, because I do see patients go through that kind of stuff on a daily basis. So seeing that kind of trauma was I actually was reading it like in the graphic novel. It's obviously not as detailed, but yeah, the way they write it's pretty heart wrenching.
I'd imagine an imagination can go so far.
Yeah, I think she did a pretty good job. It definitely captures you with it.
Right. Anyway, so back to Blister beating the crap out of Blaze. I've actually seen a couple panel of this in the graphic novel, because that was I saw like Blaze getting beaten up and like, damn, it goes hard. Both Blister's fists
quite a while too.
Well, yeah, it was a fight to the death. That's what the queens do.
Yeah, but it's almost like she was dragging it out for the show.
I think he was toying with her. I think
she was definitely toying with her. She was.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Blaze can't fight. We already established that. And also Blister's a bit of a coward.
But also kind of just shows her mentality of like, if she had just killed Blaze, she could have actually become queen. But because she wanted to drag it out so much, like they managed to kind of, solve the whole fight before it's even over.
But they found the Eye of Onyx like right next to. They actually found it where Oasis was buried.
Mm-hmm.
But
in her mouth.
It was in her mouth, just nibbling away at it for 20 years.
They never opened her mouth before they buried it. It was just
they never did. I think it was mentioned that Flower actually hit it there when she was trying to escape the stronghold. That was what happened.
I kind of glanced over it a little bit because I was reading it during my lunch break on my last day yesterday at work. But I don't remember, was there a reason why Flower needed to go starting to dig? Like, was there any sign that they gave that she would be like, oh, in order to stop this fight, let me go start showing them what they need to find? It's weird. She would just be like, oh, come dig over here really quick with me.
I think that's probably explained more in Dragon Slayer. But I missed.
Oh, I haven't.
Avenger Ex Machina.
Okay, on my sources that I made it up. But yeah, they decide all the queens suck, so they choose Thorn to be the next queen. Because she's pretty decent. She got a good thing going with the Outclaws. And yes, I do mean this Outclaws here. I am officially in the Wings of Fire canon as of 5 seconds ago. I don't need no source because I'm factually right 100% of the time. No one's ever proven me wrong, except for multiple times people have proven me wrong throughout this entire episode.
I mean, I will agree on the first that, like, I don't like Thorn as a character, but I will say that if it was her or Blaze, I would have preferred probably Thorn or even Blister.
Blaze would have been dead by the first week. Can you imagine the amount of challengers that would go in with no problem? Like, it wouldn't last long.
I do feel like on the week, at least, it's kind of like it's Blaze given this, like, by the books, at least, it's kind of like undeserved thing of like she's just dumb, but like, you can have people who help you and like support you through that instead of just like, you're stuck being dumb Sorry.
Okay, but the next thing I thought was a little bit goofy, and I didn't notice this the first time, but I remember Blister going around saying, I used my brain to get out the facing burn and the challenge pool by turning our fight into a war, and I'm the smartest dragon and pirate, I'm the rightful Sandwich Queen. She basically said that she was behind everything, and I thought that was kind of goofy, to be honest. Because how old was she in the prologue? She must have been like 12 years old or something.
She was pretty young, yeah.
Then I thought that was a little bit goofy.
Something I drew again.
More fan. There's significantly more fan art this episode than the other one.
Oh my god.
I don't know why, but I thought the One Piece is real me from this. You know what? Can you remember, if the show ever comes to light, I want this to be Flower's introduction. I'm getting this too.
I wish your actual name was just Banana. It would have been so much better.
There's going to be a significant amount of banana jokes when this comes out, I swear.
Oh yeah.
But before we get too sidetracked, because we're nearing the end, Blister tries taking the Eye of Onyx from Thorn, and I think she just straight up exploded.
And nobody liked that.
I'm not even kidding. That's what happened. Like, lightning kept flowing out from the stone, and then eventually she just turned into dust.
Yeah, and she tried to drop it but couldn't, and like it was just a silent death that makes it even worse, in my opinion.
You know, political assassination by stone. Overcooked.
Turn to ash.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I like my Blister well done. God. And yeah,
I want her crispy.
Crispy. Kentucky Fried Blister.
But only that actually be an anime name.
Right. And I think that concludes the first arc. I think I'm missing the epilogue where they actually talk about establishing a school for dragons.
I'd also like to point out one more thing: the comet.
Oh yeah, the comet. I forgot to mention that. There was like a huge comet in the sky that kept getting bigger and bigger. I think that does play a role in the next arc.
It plays it's a big role in the next arc, but it's also it also creates a new Brightest night as well.
The Skyfire. But thank you. I was blanking on the name for a minute. And before I do forget, I like Sunny and Starflight. Sunny manages to tell him that she doesn't see him that way, and I think that was another plot point that was touched upon briefly. It was like, will they or won't they kind of scenario that's been playing since almost the entire arc, really, because I was in the background, but I think their relationship definitely comes shining in like the last two books where it becomes like one of the pivotal focuses.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even Sunny's pangs of jealousy from Fate Speaker,
right,
throughout the book.
I think her development was one of the better ones because it like proved that she was optimistic, but she wasn't dumb, and that was the whole catharsis for her plotline.
Yeah.
I like how proactive she was. Like, the prophecy might not have been real, but like she wasn't gonna stand there and be useless just because she was like didn't have a destiny and like didn't have the powers her friends did. She wanted to do something about the war, and she actually does. So,
well, she said it herself. She might have been the only one that could have been able to stop it because like she was the one that believed it through and through. She decided to make it happen with her own two talents, and I can respect that.
I also personally think that like without this development, I think Sunny might have just taken the Eye of Onyx for herself without thinking about giving it to someone else. Mostly because she thought if it was in the prophecy, she was the one who had to end the war. She might have seen it like a duty sort of thing. But like because she knows that now she can choose her own destiny and like she has agency over what she was, she decides that like she wants to be herself and not a queen, and therefore gives it to Thorn.
Well, she was more focused on helping her inner world as opposed to the outer world, because she didn't really see herself in like the queen position. But she wanted to be more like intimate in terms of helping out other people, which is why she helped found Jade Mountain Academy for the next arc. Like
a mediator.
Yeah, and they talked about like possible students that could be there, and one of them is Moonwatcher. That's gonna be that's gonna be a whole topic for many arc 2 videos down the line. But yeah, that's about it for the first arc.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I kind of wish I had a better way to end this since this is like the finale.
Well,
but
we could talk about.
Go ahead.
sorry, I was going to say we could end it out on the whole prophecies thing, because there will not be another real prophecy. Wait a minute.
Oh yeah, they said like Tsunami said like this is what I vote for. No more prophecies ever again, and that proceeded to get to another prophecy 6 months later.
An actual real one this time. So
A real one this time, because
I guess we make it up from here.
Morris just said his source was that he made it up. I think that Arc 1 is definitely my favorite in Wings of Fire for a variety of reasons. But I think what comes notably is like their different growth, like as a group as well as individual, how it plays out so well. Is that as a group you can see all of them pitching in, and even as an individual they all help contribute to the main plot, which is what I like about the first arc a lot, is how it all connects in some way. What are you guys' thought on this book and the first arc?
Yeah, like I started with first arc, as we said back in the start of the podcast, and it was my favorite arc of everything. It had really good characters and everything kind of worked, and how brutal it was and everything.
Oh really? Yeah, I loved it. Oh no, I love the amount of memes I'm getting on this live chat. Keep them going.
As for me, like, to be honest, I'm like that kind of reader that just enjoys the book. I don't have any negative point of views on the book. I just want to read it. I just want to see my dragons be their own selves and all that. So like, I enjoy every book, to be honest.
I think it was pretty airtight when it comes to like positives, which is why it's one of my favorites in the arc. I think there are like, because I can't think of there are no bad books in the first arc. I will say this out loud.
Yeah,
there are no bad books in the first arc, because like it was very well developed. It had relevance and was also airtight. The other two arcs, I won't go into too much detail now. I did like the two other arcs, but there are a few critiques that I will point out definitely later down the line.
Okay, I'll go next if you're done.
Right. What was up, Skyla?
No, I don't know if everyone.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I was in.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We got any final thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, Sunny's my favorite character, so obviously when I first read this book, I really loved it. But I think, as you were saying, it's very airtight. Like everything that's introduced is there for a reason. I love the first arc because it's ambitious, but like it also is very grounded in like what it's trying to say about like these characters and about the plots. And generally, as you were saying, while I think that some of the character development is kind of lost throughout the books, it's like I do like the meme of like Tsunami is like book 2 Tsunami and every other book Tsunami is kind of different. But I think like especially for Sunny, this book was really, really good. And it's kind of like a comfort food almost, this arc, in my opinion.
Okay, now that you mentioned my character development, there's one critique I do have is Outclaws' default personality is food after his book.
Yeah.
That's my one main complaint. But other than that, it was really good.
Imagine like trying to eat the banana banana flour, but it's flour and like
flour.
Cakes.
That's going to be like a running joke for some time, I believe. Yeah, very solid series. Any other final thoughts before we close?
Yeah, I guess I'll do mine. Yeah, like I said, I'm one of the older readers in the community, so coming into it, I wasn't sure what to expect. And like I mentioned in the beginning, I like how things that don't seem relevant end up becoming huge hitters later on. I think my first real turning point for how I felt these books were going to go was going from reading through book 1, seeing all of what they're not afraid to show and talk about, and then going into book 2 and how Tsunami and her father are related, back in book 1, and just how that was, I think I actually felt like as though I physically felt her emotion at that moment when she realized what she had just heard. Like, it just snapped. And I loved that. And every book after that, through the entire first arc, is just a roller coaster of these characters kind of personifying their own unique part of their group. Like with Sunny, it's definitely about finding yourself and your voice, as well as being empathetic and also being kind of the hope of the group, the faith. Then you've got Clay, who's just, even though he is kind of dumbed down throughout the series, which, like you said, is probably my biggest gripe, is that if you're not the main character, you're kind of just given this default label throughout the rest of it. But I really like how they kind of give everybody their own unique growth throughout the series and how it contributes to them as an entire group and what they do with it versus not doing anything. Like, it's just, this is Clay's story, it's over, he's done, never relevant again. But as we see throughout the series, they all kind of, especially I think in book 3 and 5 is when we kind of see them accumulate more and actually include them more often. But it definitely did a good job with getting what it did a good job getting what it wanted to get through, and I think that's what makes it so wonderful to read. And it definitely kept me. In fact, I didn't even want to move on to Arc 2. When I got to Arc 2, I was actually kind of scared to move on because I didn't want to leave these characters. Because, usually when you move on to a second phase of a book series, you're not sure if you're ever gonna see them again. And I think I had to take a couple weeks before I can even try and move on because I was just so worried that this was it. Like, I didn't want to leave them.
Right. Well, so, and before I forget, I thought we'd do like a little Q&A panel from the people in the audience. So the Glowing Platypus asks, how would you think the story would go if Sunny were an animus? Do you think she would lose her soul and start killing people and her friends? I don't. It really depends on how you want to take that story, because the current Sunny now would probably decline against it, because Anemone, she was very reluctant to use her powers. Unless you're trying to argue if there's a different approach that Sunny could take in an AU. I mean, if you wanted to, then go for it. But I'm just saying that the current Sunny would be hesitant. The Dairy Godmother asked, do you think the dragon described in Burns' stronghold was supposed to be a Silkwing, or was just a coincidence? I think we actually discussed that earlier in the episode, so you would have to...
Yeah.
The white dragon.
Yeah, we did.
The answer is possibly. That's the best answer I can give right now.
It was kind of an easy setup, perhaps.
I don't think we had a Silkwing. I think the dragon we had was a Sandwing Icewing.
And
I could have sworn.
I think it says that it was brought. It was brought into. It's a. I'm in French, or I don't know how to say it in English, but it says to be brought it was a mix between the Sandwing and Icewing, but we don't know if it's real. It just said it. Yeah, it's not it.
Okay, let's see. Wooden Sparrow asks, what seasoning would be added to an overcooked blister to have it taste remotely good? That's a good question. I prefer red pepper flakes for my blister. I like spice.
Maybe some barbecue sauce. I don't know.
Barbecue sauce is also good. Maybe a bit of sriracha.
Put poutine on it. Just kidding.
Maybe a bit of
maple syrup.
Yeah.
I think just adding some wood chips, some flavored wood chips would make it good.
Yeah, that's the right answer. Clear Vision asks, what do you think would happen if Starflight did not hatch in a cave, but instead hatched under the 3 moons? I actually remember reading a AU about this a long time ago. I forgot the name of it. What was the name of that AU? I think it was
I've seen so many of those.
It was there was one AU I found a long time ago. It was what if Starflight hatched under the moons, but I forgot the name of it. I'd have to. I think once the edit comes out, I'm probably gonna post it in the video to know what I'm talking about.
It's quite a popular AU from what I've seen.
Yeah. Okay. Thick Butterbread asks, in the first 5 books, which one would be the most personally influential while reading? I actually don't know what you mean by this question, but I'm going to assume which one is the most influential, what I took away from the most. I would say the 5th book, because I thought the themes perfectly tied together, War, Found Family, and Destiny, and also how it's important to follow what you want to do instead of what other people want you to do. So if you're asking which one I took the most out from, it was definitely The Brightest Night.
Yeah, I think I'm the same. Definitely with if it's a personal taste or a personal, I guess kind of.
I think I'll say this one.
Okay. All right, we can take a few more questions. Argyle the Mudwing asked, do you think that Stone Mover's scales are just covered and he is unable to move, or that those effective limbs are solid stone? I think both. I think part of it is turning to stone, and also it's got like a stone layer that also makes it for him hard to move. That's how I interpreted it. Dairy Godmother asks, is it just me, or did the details of Anna's power get broader and more powerful in Arc 2 than Arc 1? It just feels different. That's a question for a later time, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. We could probably take a few more questions. One more. Wooden Spear asks, are there any draconic warfare tactics other than a straight charge? If not, what would you change about draconic warfare? I mean, there's not a whole lot I think I would change. They already have their own sense of tools, and they use like claws and fire and barbed tails and whatnot for the most part.
Spears and all that.
I mean, they do bombings like they did the Summer Palace in Book 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they have ambushes as well with Book 1.
Altered, I guess, asks, do you think Clay canonically works out in his free time? Parentheses, he's jacked, to be honest. I think Mudwings are just built different. That's my answer. That's my answer. And I will not elaborate.
Like, just bring mud and they will be okay. Like, it's like the nurse at the elementary school that just brings the ice and
Okay.
it's like it's gonna heal. It's gonna heal.
Right. Okay, I think that's enough for now. It was great to have you all here. I want to thank my incredible staff team for making all this possible. I want to thank the r/Wings of Fire for allowing me to promote this on their server for all the goofiness that I had to do to propose to it. I want to thank each of the guests here. It was very great getting to have you all here to talk about this. And of course, I want to thank the audience for being here, because this is pretty fun just to endure our craziness and whatnot.
Yeah, I would like to thank you for actually hosting this.
Well, you flatter me. Thank you.
And for coordinating with 4 different time zones.
Yeah.
Yeah, shit.
Yeah, it was really awesome.
I don't know. What can I say? I'm Mr. Worldwide. This is all great. Thank you all for having here, and I'll see everyone around next time. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
Bye.
That was a fantastic episode featuring amazing guests, along with the host TheTopBug, for an interesting discussion about the Brightest Night going deeper into the Wings of Fire universe. Want to listen to more episodes of The Outclaws? Make sure to check out the Outclaws Discord server. And if you haven't already, check out our other episodes. Their links are in the description. If you have any questions or want to be part of the show, please contact us at outclawspodcast@gmail.com. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you guys next time in the next arc in the Wings of Fire series on The Outclaws.